Today we are talking about toxins in the beauty industry.
Except you see all your flaws.
Yes. Her name is Sandye Lomax.
Celebrity eyelash technician.
I love where I am, how I look, what I'm doing, but I want to improve.
My lungs started to break down.
Yeah.
Can't be healthy.
Right.
You know?
Her name is Paro Sen, and she's a research industrial hygienist.
It's called the toxic trio a lot because they have been linked to a lot of health problems.
Next on the Health Mastery Café.
Hey, it's Dr. Contessa, and you are watching the Health Mastery Café with Dr. Dave.
Cafe connoisseurs, today we are talking about toxins in the workplace, specifically in the beauty industry. A topic that is worth talking about because it affects so many people. Think about this. How many of us go to a nail or hair or brow salon once a week? How many of us go to a barber shop once a week? Sometimes you go twice a week, depending on what you do for a living. So this hits home for a lot of different people. To start us off talking about this, I am stoked to bring on our next guest, who is a true powerhouse in beauty and lifestyle. She is a licensed cosmetologist and esthetician, widely celebrated as Atlanta's best makeup artist, y'all. She's got hot fire skills, okay? Her clientele crosses the gamut. TV, film, entertainment, music, all over the place you will see her work. But the reason why I want to bring her in here is to tell us about what she thinks is happening maybe underneath the surface. Her name is Sandye Lomax, and she's the founder of Beauty Fetish, LLC. She's built a lifestyle brand covering fashion and travel and philanthropy and self-care. You know, I love that. She recently launched her apparel and beauty line, debuting the Affirmations collection to spread positivity and style. She's the author of an upcoming book, Beauty Fetish, 21 Days of Self-Obsessed Love, telling women, listen, self-love is not vanity. It is essential. It's a must. Welcome to the cafe counter, y'all. Sandye Lomax.
Thank you, Dr. Dave.
So nice to have you. Oh my God. And I didn't even, listen, I could have read some more stuff. It's not just hair, it's nails, it's brows, you love the creative space.
I love it.
Especially when it comes to beauty and fashion.
I am absolutely in love with it.
Tell me where it started. Where did the passion start?
My. As a young girl, I feel like I was a tomboy, to be honest. So who would ever think, okay, at 52 right now, I have been spearheading in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
But I grew up tall, lanky, never knew when I would fill in. It was very awkward, got teased a lot. And then eventually I started getting stopped in the grocery store and, oh, would you like to do makeup, or let me do makeup on you? And
as a model.
As a model.
Yeah.
And so eventually the long, lanky legs that I got teased for actually landed me modeling for Paul Mitchell, B. Michael.
Wow.
And then...
These are like real deal. This is not like some, fly by night.
Yeah, I say it so humbly, don't I?
Yeah, this is the real deal.
Yes. And then there was the thing of playing in my aunt and my oldest, I don't like to say stepsister, my bonus sister, they were into modeling. And so I would play in their clothes. And then I got into playing with makeup.
Right.
And fast forward, my grandmother was passing from cancer. And I realized the one thing that made her feel alive, the one thing that made her feel good was when I would put makeup on her face. And I would polish her nails. And even though, during cancer, there are certain things you cannot do.
Sure. You mean with the makeup?
Through radiation treatments.
Oh, yes.
But there were times when it's like, okay, I'm going to sneak in the hospital and I'm going to polish her nails. I'm going to make her feel beautiful during her last days that I didn't want to accept, but I knew what made her feel good. And that's when I learned, wow, okay, what would I do for free in life? Make people feel and look good.
Yeah.
And you get paid for doing what you love.
What you love to do, because it's so much more than the surface, and I think people miss that.
Oh, so much more.
Yeah. When you are, we talk about the flow state a lot.
Yes.
When you get into a flow state, it really doesn't matter what's happening around you. No. You're not worried about somebody's time. No. You don't care who's looking or watching. You're just in that space.
You're in it.
You can get into that space when you just hit that one little stroke, that master touch. Boom, ooh, that's dope. You get that?
Yes, yeah. I do. I honestly get that. I mean, like, it's my It's my place of comfort, actually. You know, so when people say do what you love,
You're already doing it.
I'm doing it.
And have been.
And I have been.
Yeah.
And it just took for me to tap into, okay, what is my purpose? And my purpose was making people feel and look good. And I feel like then you find, what is your passion?
Yeah.
And so I was able to mix the two.
The two, yeah.
And I tap into that and I zone out.
Absolutely.
And creativity, the great part about creativity is there are no limits.
Sure.
There are
Yeah.
no limits.
Yeah.
So when I created the name Beauty Fetish, I wanted it to be an umbrella to cover everything that I love doing, whether that be art, anything creative, whether that be makeup, whether that be nails, hair, whatever. I wanted it to fall under the umbrella for the rest of my life. I didn't want to have to keep changing brand names. I wanted it to be wherever I want to go and
That's
whatever
right.
I want to do. I don't want to
On
put it in a
brand.
box.
That's right.
That's
You can
it.
plug it all in there.
Yes.
And the beauty, and this sounds trite. It almost sounds cliche. That beauty literally goes through the person. It's not just on the surface.
Yes.
Because when somebody can just sort of have their whole soul elevated to a different wavelength just because they look like you make them look.
I mean, listen, the whole thing about it is, this is my motto, true beauty starts within.
It has to, yeah.
So what I am actually doing is just enhancing
That's right.
what you already have within.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. But just think on the outside, you wake up, you look in the mirror every day. And this is why I'm into affirmations also. But you have to tell yourself, I love myself. I love what I see. And you have to do that without the makeup,
Right.
without the lashes,
Yes.
without the nail polish.
Yes.
And then when you get it, I call it the bonus beauty. The bonus beauty is you really feel like
Yeah.
I'm amazing.
Yes.
I look
Yes.
amazing. I can
Yes.
tackle the world.
Yes.
I can do anything because we all want to feel and look good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It gives you a certain type of confidence.
It does.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're more confident, you can execute the plan, you can go and do the presentation, you can, right,
Exactly.
stand up to power, right? All of those things.
Yes.
It's so fascinating to see that what you're really doing is you're allowing people to uncover what's already in them.
Exactly.
The beauty that's within.
The beauty
Boy,
that's within.
we could literally just keep talking about that piece.
But I do want to
yeah.
just on that note, you said something to me that was so powerful, right? Because when you get up in the morning and you look at yourself, but before the makeup,
Yeah.
before you have any of that stuff, it's kind of hard to say, oh my God, I look beautiful. You know, I look gorgeous. You feel like, oh, I got to cover this up. You see all your flaws
Yeah.
Yeah.
before you see the beauty,
Yeah.
right? So I like that
Yeah.
you are saying, no, you still have to just still see yourself as beautiful, even
You
without
have
the
to.
makeup.
And you know what I want to take that back to, let's think of the pandemic, right? Okay, everything shut down. Now, we aren't going to go into, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the things they wanted to open first was the beauty
Absolutely.
industry.
Yes.
And I had done
Pandemic resistant.
and pandemic exactly. And I had done an interview with a news anchor who was one of my clients at the time, and she wanted to know why wouldn't I go back even though the governor or the higher power said, okay, we want these businesses to open up, we'll allow them to open up, right? Okay, during the pandemic time, what it did for my clients and a lot of people is they had no choice but to look in the mirror and see themselves. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we were closed and you could not say, okay, I'm coming to get my lashes done. I'm coming to get my makeup done. I'm coming to get my hair done. Everything shut down. So it really gave people an opportunity to look at themselves, which they probably hadn't seen in years. A lot of people
On the go.
extensions, hair,
Yes. Yes.
polish. People had to learn how to do things themselves. But you had to learn to look in the mirror and say, wow, I love me. Like I love me without it all.
Yeah.
And some people had to face that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was one of the pluses I would say from the pandemic.
Yeah, no, and I think what you're saying, it goes for everybody. It's not just women.
Exactly.
Men have to be able to say that I'm okay.
Yes.
Nobody's ever told me that I'm okay just as I am.
Just as I am.
And it's okay to be human. So here's what I know about the human condition. The human condition is to always want something more. We are impelled for increase. We are impelled to improve. That's okay. It's a fine line to say, I love where I am, how I look, what I'm doing, but I want to improve.
Yes.
That fine line between beating yourself up, right? The denigration, the unnecessary stuff that we put on ourselves. That, by the way, nobody else sees. But you, the granularity that you're looking at.
Yes.
I remember I used to trip out about these little things on my face, and someone would say, "Oh, I love the texture on your face." Oh, really? I don't know if they hadn't said that. I mean, the texture on my face. You mean I got some texture?
The texture, the word texture at that.
You know, but think about that. Once you've said to yourself, "I love myself,"
Yes.
that opens you up to the improvement, the healthy improvement. You help people do that every single day.
Yes. It is listen, it is a blessing.
Yeah.
It is and what I will say for people like me who do this for a living, the hard part is then, okay, if you're telling the client this to give them confidence and you're beautifying them, a lot of times we're doing it so much that we don't take the time to do it for ourselves.
Do it for yourself. Yeah. Oh, that's big. That's a whole, you have to come back and we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Right? You know, put your mask on first. So we'll talk about that another time.
Yes.
Along with some of the good comes some bad.
Definitely.
And we don't really talk about the environment that we're in, particularly nail salons or where they use a lot of chemicals, or hair salons where there's a lot of stuff in the air on surfaces. But it is clear that there are toxins. You have a story around that part as well.
I do.
Tell me about what you think has happened in terms of your exposure to chemicals.
I would have to say, me personally, oh my, okay. So for me, it goes back to, I was exposed to mold. Okay, mold, black mold. And I didn't know that I was exposed to mold, right? So my lungs started to break down.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on. I just knew within the home there had been previous water damage. Okay, well, fast forward from there, and I ended up getting sick. I caught the flu and like a cold, and I ended up with bilateral pneumonia.
Oh, wow.
So then you have your lungs, which are already being compromised that you didn't know.
From the mold, right?
You know.
Right. Yeah.
And what I found out, it was the levels of mold. So when we get into certain things, you know, as it relates to the good and the bad, sometimes it depends on the levels of the bad that you are exposed to. That can make things really damaging, really hazardous to your health. And that for me was the beginning stages for my lung conditions. And after that, COVID came. And COVID was a gift and a blessing. The gift was for
I'm waiting for the gift part. Okay.
So let's
I'm
see.
like, where'd you go? Okay.
People say, okay, give me the good, give me the bad first.
Yeah.
So let me give you the bad first.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
I just messed that up for everybody. It was like, we were waiting for the good part. Okay.
I'm gonna give you the bad first, right? Okay, so the bad was my lungs were already compromised, and COVID came along and said, oh, we're just gonna snatch them up some more. We're just gonna
set up shop.
Yeah, we're just gonna do this thing, and now they're gonna diagnose you with asthma, and you're gonna have a nebulizer again, and you're gonna have albuterol and all of these things, which then you hear of long-term haulers as far as COVID.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what I do for a living, I'm exposed to chemicals.
Right.
So let's say if I'm even polishing nails, I'm dealing with the fumes from the nails.
That's right.
So due to COVID, I truly feel like since then, my lungs and my overall sinuses has heightened to a whole nother level.
Meaning how sensitive they are?
Sensitive they are, that I actually feel like when I walk into a salon and I smell fumes, I smell it on a different level prior to having the lung conditions.
Right.
Now it's like there's something saying, this is not good for you. This is not here.
Yeah.
And this is telling you it's not good. See, prior to having lung conditions, you go in and you think it. You're like, this smell.
Yeah. This can't be right. Yeah.
This can't be healthy.
Right.
You know, but but we are of vain people.
Yeah.
We like to look.
We will endure it.
So we will endure.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was the case. Now, the good part about COVID, if you will, is that for people like me in the beauty industry, where you work nonstop, if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, you don't have sick days off, paid leave.
You're telling me,
things like that. You know, and so you finally had time to sit and be still, and you got the opportunity to maybe tap into other hobbies. You know, for families, they got to eat dinner together. That was the plus for me.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
And so for me, I got to rest. I got to give my lungs a chance to rest, where I didn't have to feel guilty, and then I knew my bills would still get paid. Right. Okay. And then I tapped into a new hobby. The hobby.
Everybody's on the edge of their seat, like what? Because she does like everything.
Hold tight. Creative resin art. I don't know if you've ever heard of resin. Have you ever heard of resin?
Like resin for teeth?
No.
You shape it?
No. So resin is actually two major chemicals that you mix together.
Oh.
And it creates, maybe, let's say you have this glass table, right? It will create a layer of whatever you
want. The little swirly. Yes.
That you have flooring.
Oh,
you can do canvas.
Yeah, and it has this beautiful swirly.
You can make, again, creativeness is there's no limit.
Yeah,
there's no boundaries,
absolutely.
Right?
Sure.
But there I was amongst chemicals again, doing something I like. Then I had to upgrade to a respiratory.
A respirator. Yeah.
The big respiratory mask?
Yeah, the respirators. Yeah, with the little two things on the side.
Nothing cute about it.
Right, no, you look like a fighter.
But it's like, do you want to live?
Like the fighter pilot. You're like shooting guns at folks in the air. Yeah.
Exactly. So you know, again.
But so this was in the garage or something, or like in the house you were doing it.
In the garage, and also in a room off from everything else.
Okay.
You know, because the fume, again,
because you knew the vapors. Okay.
Fumes and the vapors, and you have to make sure your ventilation.
So all of those years, the vapors, the fumes, the particulate matter from work. Now your hobby, again, creative, but still exposing yourself to more.
Exposing myself. So here I am to date, as far as still trying to protect my lungs. It's a lifelong thing now. It has changed my life and the way that I choose to live and the way that I have to live. Yeah. Also.
Yeah.
Lung issues are no joke.
Yeah. Remind me, just on the side note, to reference a book that I want you to read, listen to, whatever it is, about breathing techniques. And this book goes into all the details about just changing your breathing. And we're not talking about some transcendental, meditation, although that's good. Daily changes in the way you breathe force your lungs to accommodate differently. So it's a really fantastic listen. I listened to this one.
That's awesome.
But so we'll
and they even brought the mask and forgot to bring them in.
They're not paying me, so I'm not going to plug his book in the.
No, it's not the plug.
Now if he comes to the podcast, I'll plug his book. But offline.
No, but I brought the surgical mask. The N95.
The N95, and then you have those. Okay. So what we'll do is when we're talking about, we'll just pop it up so people can
I don't even know I think it's in the car.
So people can see it. Is there a part of that where hey, when COVID hit me, I know it was as bad as it was because I was exposed to mold, because I was exposed to vapors. Do you think is another one of the bright sides? I had these things, and so now when I come across these vapors, I know it, and I can protect myself.
Yes.
I can wear a respirator. I can wear a mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because, and that's the thing about having to go through it. And it's interesting because before you try any type of product on a client, for me personally, I like to try it myself, right? Here's a different type of scenario. Now I've gone through these lung issues. I understand what chemicals can really do because I can actually feel them. It's something you can't kind of really describe, but I can feel them. So now I'm very protective of clients. I'm very protective of what what products I'm using on them.
Sure.
What chemicals are in the products, you know. And the thing is, when you go back and you go to, let's say, hair school, gosh, I graduated 2007, eon years ago.
Yeah.
Right? I'm 52 now. So I look at then state board. State board, you have to, you know, make sure your salon goes according to certain regulations.
That's right.
As it relates to health,
That's
and
right.
safety,
Right.
sanitation,
Right.
and all of those things.
That's right.
And then once you're out of school, you're out.
Yeah.
You know, but life keeps evolving. You know, new products are being made. We don't know if all products are approved as far as NOSHA, FDA.
Yep, all those.
You know,
Yep.
just all of those different things.
Because they don't have to go through it necessarily.
They don't necessarily have to go through it.
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know, because of my personal situation, it has made me say, okay, let me be mindful of this client. Is this client pregnant?
Oh, right.
You know what I'm saying? Is this client a cancer survivor?
Right.
I'm very sensitive now.
So do you offer them your respirator when you have to, like nails, for example? No. I mean, no, seriously, like you do. You say, hey, listen,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So I don't offer them. Well, here's the thing. There are masks always there, right? You have certain people who are against wearing masks.
Yeah.
And
For any number of political reasons,
so many,
this,
all of
anti-vaxxers,
those, all of those things.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I make sure though, for me, is I have my mask on.
Right.
That's the thing for me, because most times now, I guess people would like to put me in this category and say celebrity eyelash technician. And the thing about eyelash technician and educator is I teach the anatomy of the eye. See, when you're in school, you learn the physiology and the anatomy.
Yeah.
And you have some people out here who are doing a lot of these services, but they have not learned.
They've not learned. They don't know what
have
they're
not learned
doing.
the layers of the skin.
They don't know the why.
They don't know the
Yes.
why.
Yes.
You know.
Not just how to do it. Why do we do it that way?
Why do we do
That's
it
the master
that way?
learner. Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, you know, informing your clients also, giving them information makes them feel comfortable about coming back to you.
Right.
And so
And giving them
thing
those little
is-
tidbits. Hey, you know, your lacrimal gland, I'm just going to stay with blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Oh, lacrimal gland, you know.
Yes. And if you don't want to wear a mask, then please understand that I am going to have on this humidifier. You know, I want you to know that the ventilation system in here, you know, is really, you know, top notch for you to be able to breathe, you know, for it to collect because there are particles in the air. I mean, it's just so many layers to this. We can talk about this, but
No, but this is what people want to hear. And you just sort of keying into the fact that that part's not good. And let me try to, whatever I can, help them. Let me choose certain products.
Yes.
I have this line of products when there's low risk. I have this line of products when the risk might be a little bit higher.
Right.
So I want to bring on an expert after we come back from break.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
A real expert.
A real expert.
Okay.
Definitely a real expert. Coming up next.
Find the Health Mastery Café on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Health Mastery Café, and subscribe on YouTube also.
I want to bring in my next guest. Her name is Paro Sen, and she's a research industrial hygienist at the NIOSH, which is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. She actually has a master's degree in industrial hygiene. She's going to tell us what that is. Her research interests include, but not limited to, exposures like we've been talking about today with Sandye Lomax, that people who are in salons are exposed to all the time. Paro Sen, thanks for joining us on the cafe.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
You know, when I was looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, I've never really heard of an industrial hygienist. Can you tell, what is an industrial hygienist?
So I would say we are health and safety professionals who focus more on the health side versus safety. So instead of kind of doing like with safety, I feel like you think about like slips, trips and falls, ladders, hard hat kind of stuff. So health, we focus more on long-term health problems. So chemical exposures are a big part of it, but then again, in like a lot of industrial settings, we focus on noise or shift work, vibrations, ergonomics, that sort of thing.
So wait a minute. So when you say industrial hygienist, do you mean like the dental hygienist? Like, we go to the dentist?
People always ask, so is it like a dental hygienist? And I don't know why they use the word hygiene specifically. I think that was just what the discipline was named when it first became a thing. But when I describe it to people, I usually just say occupational health.
Let's start with this. Are there known toxins, chemicals that are used in these workplaces, salons, right? Nail salons, hair salons, that are known to cause problems? Not conjecture, but known to cause problems.
So I think the best way to explain it is that there are chemicals that are known to be in salons, and these chemicals are known to cause certain health effects. But the biggest thing I think that's really important when talking about chemical hazards is that the dose of the chemical is really important. So the levels of chemical exposures are really what creates that potential for someone to have these adverse outcomes. And that's something that's also really variable in salons based on factors such as the products they're using, the ventilation they've got, the size of the salon, how many people are working there. It's just a pretty wide spectrum of exposures. But there are like a lot of nail products have been found to contain chemicals such as toluene or formaldehyde or dibutyl phthalate, which gets called the toxic trio a lot because they have been linked to a lot of health problems. But I think the important thing is that the level someone might be exposed to might not be super high. It might be, it's just something that specifically needs more research. And a nail salon is such a different environment from someone who, compared to, for example, like we've done studies of solvent exposed workers who work in chemical factories. And that's something that we can say, okay, this person has like they have a known quantity of this chemical, so we can easily figure out their exposure. And nail salons, just because, especially if someone's doing nail art, they're doing this really intricate work, it's a lot harder to kind of quantify that exposure.
Pyro, when we talk about toxic trio, why are they used?
Yeah.
What are they used for?
So it's called the toxic trio. So that's something that I think has become a popular phrase among the nail community and in manufacturers. It's not something that I'm going to be clear that the CDC came up with necessarily or NIOSH came up with, but it's just something that's really popular among nail techs as a way of describing these three chemicals that are in a lot of nail polishes because they do have properties that are helpful in the chemistry of nail products, obviously, to create something that is a liquid in the bottle and then dries as a solid coat. It does require a lot of chemistry. And so toluene kind of acts as like a paint thinner, whereas phthalates help act as a plasticizer to kind of get from that liquid to that solid state on the nails. And then formaldehyde is used as a preservative. So they do have uses in the polishes, but they are also known to cause health problems.
So is this what they mean by forever chemicals? We're hearing a lot about forever chemicals. Is this trio forever chemical?
No, so that's a great question. They are not. So forever chemicals, it is a phrase that has gained a lot of traction now. So that refers mostly to a group of chemicals called PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. And those are fluorinated synthetic compounds that are used in a lot of things because, again, they have a lot of uses. They're great as stain repellents. They're great for nonstick cookware. They are resistant to heat, grease, water. So they have a lot of uses, but they are also linked to adverse health effects. And they're called forever chemicals because they bioaccumulate and don't necessarily leave the body very quickly. So that's why we call them forever chemicals, because that excretion mechanism is pretty slow.
So, another question that I've had is, how does the chemical get into the body? Is there different routes that it can get in the body?
So there are three main exposure routes that we think about when we talk about chemical exposures. So there's inhalation, which is breathing something in and then it enters your lungs and then your bloodstream that way. There's dermal, which is through the skin. So that can either be on the surface of the skin and then it permeates your skin, or it can be subcutaneous if it's injected in some way into the skin, and then that would enter your body faster. And then also ingestion, which is eating or drinking something. So in occupational settings, we tend to talk mostly about inhalation and dermal. So I would say in nail salons, inhalation and dermal are the two biggest exposure routes, because a lot of these chemicals do have the potential to turn into vapors once the containers are open. So like you said, those fumes, those are vapors that you're smelling.
So I've always thought about the dust particles when I'm getting my nails done and I see them going into the air. And even if I have on the mask, if there's glasses, the particles are everywhere.
Yeah.
How do they affect someone?
Yeah, it becomes airborne, like it's airborne particles from more so the actual acrylic nails. So that fake nails that when they're shaped, that can become a dust of the acrylic formulation.
Okay, Paro, so this is great, by the way. So let's break this down. What are some of the specific conditions that you see associated with this chemical exposure?
So that's a great question. So I want to talk about the health effects in kind of acute versus chronic. So I would say like a lot of the acute conditions are things that we have a lot of evidence to support, are pretty well documented. So those are things like if someone is working with solvents for a long time, they might feel dizzy or they might feel nauseous or just headaches, but things that'll typically resolve themselves once they leave that environment. So there is a lot of evidence to show that like a lot of nail technicians do report if they're working with solvents for a long time, whether that be the polishes or even things like acetone or disinfectants. They can report feeling a little bit lightheaded after working with that, nauseous, headaches, and also skin and eye irritation. So there are products used in nail salons that are skin sensitizers, so they can cause irritation. And those are things that typically do resolve themselves once someone leaves that environment. So we call them acute because they're more just short term. It's usually just while you're there. There are chronic health conditions that have been linked to working in a nail salon, but I want to say linked because that evidence is a little bit more anecdotal or it's retrospective versus what, as an industrial hygienist, we like to do is say we collected information about the levels and we know for a fact that these levels of chemical exposures cause this health outcome. So for something like reproductive health problems, it's just not as easy to say like we know that this chemical exposure caused this because it's more of a long-term health condition. It's something that a number of factors can affect, and it's just not as easy to say this is something that was caused by a nail salon.
Paro, can we talk about lung issues? I, for one, have lung issues. My lungs have been compromised. How does this actually affect someone with lung issues or someone who may not even know they have lung issues or they don't have lung issues?
That's the thing.
Those short-term effects on someone feeling shortness of breath, that sort of thing, can be linked to working in a nail salon if they are in that environment all day. And like, it is something that can cause, or it can be linked to something like asthma. I will say more long-term lung diseases such as COPD or even lung cancer, I don't want to say necessarily that it's definitely like a one-to-one working in a nail salon is going to cause these outcomes, but it certainly, I think, could be a risk factor, especially when you think about some of those chemicals that are out there and also the particulate from the nail dust also. Breathing in particulate can cause lung irritation that can result in inflammation and other lung conditions more long-term.
So another big category is neurologic stuff, right? Nerve, brain, central nervous system. Are there known conditions that come from these chemical exposures and neurologic problems?
So again, that's something that I don't want to say we are 100% sure, but there is some research that has been done comparing nail salon workers to solvent exposed workers who might work in chemical factories or in other environments where they're known to be exposed to high level solvents. And there was a study that was done on the relationship between um, working in a nail salon and cognitive function. So there were researchers who did a study comparing solvent exposed workers in industrial settings like chemical factories and that sort of thing, their performance on attention tests and other cognitive tests to both nail salon workers and the general public. And they found that the nail salon workers did perform similarly to these other solvent exposed groups on these cognitive tests compared to the general public. So this is just one piece of the research, and it doesn't necessarily get into the details of the exposure, but it is, I think, interesting in a field that does need more research specifically.
Can we talk about the different cancers? Can you give us any information on that? I will say that I do have some cancer surviving clients. I cannot work with them until they are finished radiation. What can you tell us about cancers as it relates to the toxins?
Yeah.
So that is, I think, a difficult one to talk about because cancer is so serious and it can be caused by so many factors. So I don't want to say again that 100% working in a nail salon is something that is going to cause cancer, but there are chemicals in nail salons such as formaldehyde, which are known carcinogens. So the more formaldehyde you're exposed to, the greater your cancer risk is. So that I think is something that is worth thinking about when it comes to working in a nail salon. And that is something that has caused a lot of manufacturers to phase out formaldehyde. So that's where reading those product labels and doing research about the products in the salon can really help with making sure that you are getting formaldehyde-free products.
We talk about phthalates and fibroids. I, for one, and I know as a woman, I speak for many, I have had a fibroid actually in my uterus lining. Will I ever know if it was related to any type of toxins? I don't know. But can you give us any information or feedback as it relates to that?
I can't speak as much to the relationship between phthalates and fibroid tumors, but I can talk a little bit about phthalates in nail products. So phthalates are used as a plasticizer in a lot of nail polishes, or they have been in the past, that can kind of transform nail polish from that liquid in the bottle to a solid coat on someone's nails. So they are in there for a reason. However, they have been linked to health effects such as reproductive health problems and other long-term effects from repeated phthalate exposures. And they are being phased out of a lot of personal care products for that reason, because they are in so many products that people use every day, and they are really common, and they're things people use on their bodies. So in nail products, a lot of companies are trying to phase out phthalates in favor of other plasticizers to remove that exposure.
Can we talk about pregnancy?
Yeah.
Paro, definitely. I want to talk about pregnancy. I've had some clients come in, and there are different chemicals that I use. Now, of course, in hair school, we learned about formaldehyde. I've talked about resin. When you read about nail polishes, actually, if you were to Google, you will see formaldehyde along with resin side by side.
Oh.
Actually. And so my concern is with women who are pregnant when they come in. There are different things, even if I'm doing lashes and we use adhesives. There's a product called glycol, and they say, tell your clients, don't use glycol in your facial products. It can break down the bonds of the glue. So I just think about all of these different things, Paro, and I'm interested, what is your take on women who are pregnant?
Pregnancy is also so delicate and can be affected by a number of factors. That is something that we've seen a little bit of anecdotal evidence and retrospective research on, but not necessarily that exposure-based piece of it where we have quantified, like, yes, this level of exposure to this chemical caused this effect during pregnancy or while trying to conceive or after childbirth. So one of my colleagues actually published a study looking at birth data and maternal occupation. And they did find that maternal occupation as a nail technician during pregnancy was linked to potentially higher rates of certain birth defects, as well as placenta previa, I believe.
So, Paro, this has been amazing, and I don't want to leave people with a gloom and doom sort of, conclusion, because there are some things that we can do. Tell us, what are the things that are known to help fight exposure to these chemicals?
That's a great question. And I think the biggest thing that we can do to help reduce these exposures is implementing what we call in industrial hygiene controls for these exposures. So that can be something as simple as wearing PPE. So when a nail technician wears gloves instead of just using their bare hands to perform a service, that protects them from dermal exposures. And then ventilation is also a really big thing that can help in reducing airborne exposures. So, of course, if a salon has the ability to implement something such as local exhaust ventilation, that's great and that's the gold standard. But even something like just turning on a fan or opening a door or window can really help with airflow in the salon.
So what about mask, Pyro? I know when I'm using resin, I have to use a respirator mask. I know when I go in a nail salon to get my nails done, they are actually using the surgical mask. But we all know, even if we go back to the pandemic, we should be using an N95 mask when we think of particles and vapors in the air. What is your take on mask using?
So yes, masks do help. However, I think what we see a lot of nail technicians wear are those surgical masks. And I will say that that is not ideal for these exposures that we've talked about, like vapors and particles. So surgical masks, I'm sure you know, are great for droplets and pathogen protection. But for something like a particulate, it's a little bit different in the way that it can permeate a mask. So for particulates, NIOSH actually recommends using an N95 mask. And then for vapors, I know this is a hard sell because the masks look a little crazy and it's kind of a whole thing. But for vapors, really the best thing are those half-face masks that like cover here and then have those cartridges. And that's really the best way to protect against vapors. And I realize that that's not something you necessarily want to be wearing as a nail tech and then have your customers asking a billion questions about why you have a whole contraption on your face.
Thank you, Paro Sen, industrial hygienist, coming to us from Cincinnati.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so the respirator. I think, so for me, it's eye-opening because, I know the power of N95s, right? I still wear an N95 in my practice every day. But the fact that those vapors can get through the N95.
Man, listen, Dr. Dave. Okay, think about it this way, right? Okay, you've probably never thought about this. Do you go to the barbershop?
Yes.
Okay, you go to the barbershop, you're getting your hair cut. And I see the waves. You wear the cap at night.
I don't wear a cap. I don't wear a cap.
Really?
It's a long story. I'll give you the story.
The ocean waves are on it.
I'm just trying to tell you. I'll give you the story.
Okay, so you go to the barbershop and you have the barber who's cutting your hair, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the barber isn't using gloves or a mask right now.
My barber does, but most don't.
Okay, so what I want to say is it's great that some people have continued on after the pandemic. They've understood safety. We understand dermal, the skin.
Yep.
But you think about little fine hairs, right? Okay, so the fine hairs can get beneath your skin. The fine hairs can get in your nostrils. You're blowing, let's say blow dry, hair, little fine pieces of hair that are cut, right? So you can inhale them and you can get them under your skin. They're in your clothes. You go home, you don't realize. It's the same thing with particles. It's the same thing with vapors. So when we talk about masks, I mean, you have to think about it. If you go into a nail salon and they're using a surgical mask, right? But they're using it all day long. And you get we call them fake fingernails, which are probably mostly made out of synthetic.
Yeah.
They're filing it, right?
Yeah.
Electrical files.
Yeah.
The synthetic, the particles are floating in the air. They're everywhere. So they get in your nose hair. You're the client. You're
Yeah.
sitting on this side.
Yeah,
They're
you're
in
getting
your
it too.
nose
Yeah,
hairs.
yeah.
So they have on a mask. But here's the thing. We live in a vain world, right? And I humbly say that. I want to look good.
Yeah.
I want to feel good.
Yeah, yeah.
So we take this risk and we go in. Now, does my mind say, Sandy, you should be putting on this mask also? They have on a mask. And it's not just because they have it on doing you. One person is a client. They may have 10 clients that day, but they are trying to protect themselves as much as possible, even though we know it really should be an N95 mask, right?
Right.
But I mean, what do we do?
Yeah.
What do we do, Dr. Dave? What do we do? We
No,
want to look and feel.
Yeah, because it's hard to tell somebody to put on a mask. It's not going to look that cute.
It's not going to look that cute, and you're coming.
And you're
in
there to look cute.
You're coming in to look cute.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you do? What do we do moving forward?
Yeah.
And the only thing is, that I can say is for each individual is to think about themselves, think about their own health safety, and just be mindful. And sometimes think, okay, I'm here to get cute. Let me put the mask on in here, but when I walk out, I'm going to be cute because I'm going to be done.
Be cute and healthy, so I can stay cute for a really long time. Sandye Lomax, thank you so much for being here.
Dr. Dave, thank you for having me.
And you guys know what I always say. There's nothing more important than your health. Now go master it.